Welcome, everyone, to the Comedy Sports Podcast with your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Today's special guest is Shaken, Not Stirred. It's Rick Rock Steady Steadman.
Hello, my wonderful listeners. Welcome back to the ComedySportz Podcast. It's me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Very excited today. I've got a player who has played in more than one place. We have Rick Steadman, who has landed himself in Seattle after playing in more than one city. We'll get to that soon. But Rick, thank you so much for coming.
It's so my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. And we're in person. This is lovely. It's good
really
to look
is.
at a real person across the table.
Yeah.
Rick, I always start the interview with where were you born and raised?
Okay. Well, I was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Oh. It's not on any of your research.
No. I really stalked you.
Yeah, I know you did. It's unsettling. No, it's fine. I was born in Oklahoma, but I have no memory of it. My dad was in the Air Force, so when I was 1, we moved from there to Shreveport, Louisiana, and then when I was 2, we moved to Spokane, Washington, and that's where I grew up.
Oh, so have you been all over the place, or did you settle in Washington?
We settled in Washington.
Okay.
My parents both had roots in the Northwest, so once my dad got stationed up there, he moved into the reserves so that he could kind of stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your dad was a military guy. What did your mom do?
Well, my dad was Air Force, but he's an oral and maxillofacial surgeon.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he just fixed everybody's faces.
Just a bunch of face fixing. Yeah. Just all the face fixing.
Wow.
And my mom, they haven't been together for a very long time, but my mom is a retired cardiac intensive care nurse. And she was also a professor of nursing education. She taught undergraduate and graduate nursing.
Wow.
Yeah, they're smarty farties.
Very much so. So when you were a kid, did you want to go into the medical field, or what did you want to do?
I was interested in medicine for a little while. I definitely was interested in the sciences for a while. I kind of thought I would go into the sciences up until sometime in high school when I realized that I wanted to go into the very related field of acting.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a conversation with each of my parents. But,
were they against it?
my mom was supportive, but frightened for me.
Okay.
And my dad he wasn't against it, but he definitely wasn't for it for a while.
Yeah.
Oddly, he got on board when I was in college and he saw me do Shakespeare for the first time.
Okay.
I don't know why that was the thing, but
Yeah.
he was like, okay, now I'm on board.
You got Shakespeare, you're good.
Yeah, apparently, but famously tons of money in that. So, yeah.
There's Shakespeare in the park.
And I have. And barely got paid, yeah.
Well, there you go. Mm-hmm. So you did go to college for theater?
I did. Well, I did a triple major with a minor.
Triple major minor.
I did. I did 5 years.
Okay.
But
I did too. No judgment.
Yeah.
It's a way to go.
I'm glad I did it because now, years later, I can say that I did a triple major with a minor.
Yeah.
But I got degrees in theater, German, and history, and a minor in philosophy. Again, all fields with lots of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, German in particular.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So are you fluent in German?
I'm not at all.
Do you do a good German accent when that's the suggestion?
I do a good German accent, and I'm conversational, kind of slow, halting. I've always been better at reading and writing it than I have been at speaking it. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with this next question, you're going to answer with your best German accent that you would do on stage.
Oh, okay.
For a ComedySportz show.
So this is ComedySportz German-accent, not like
Correct.
authentic German accent.
Let's do both.
Okay.
Let's start with authentic. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. So tell me where you went to college.
Well, I went to Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington.
Okay. Now I want you to do the ComedySportz one. Mm-hmm. And where did you go to college?
Well, I went to Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington.
See, I like that one.
I turned into Dr. Strangelove. I didn't intend that, but that's what happened.
Fantastic. So when you studied there, I want to learn about how improv came into your sights. You're learning theater, you're doing Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Where did improv come from?
Well, I did some what they called theater games when I was in like junior high.
Okay.
But in high school was when I sort of started doing improv regularly. A few friends and I started a high school improv group.
Really?
Yeah, my understanding is it's still going, which is cool. But it has the best/worst/best high school improv group name.
What
You
is
ready
that?
for this?
Yes.
Thesperados.
Thesperados.
Like thespians. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice. And you started it.
Some friends and I, yeah.
Well, how did you know about improv in order to even start that?
Well, I had, like I say, I'd done some theater games in junior high in like drama club or whatever it was. And I had a friend who was much more motivated than I was in high school, who our freshman year was like, there isn't an improv group. Do you want to start one? And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
So we did. Yeah. And
Had you heard of ComedySportz by then?
I hadn't. No,
Okay.
I didn't hear about ComedySportz. So I did improv in high school. I did improv in college at Gonzaga. There's a great campus improv group called GU Theater Sports, Guts.
Guts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was involved in that for the 5 years that I was there. But my first senior year, I want to say, there was a notice in the theater bulletin board saying,
Right.
are you interested in doing ComedySportz? Come to this classroom on this date and time.
Okay.
And it was a wonderful guy named Casey Christie who had been on the Portland ComedySportz team and had moved to Spokane and wanted to keep doing ComedySportz. So he wanted to open one.
Oh, okay.
And he somehow had landed on Gonzaga as a place to kind of start recruiting.
Yeah.
And so a number of us came to the meetings. This was like fall of 2000. And we just kept working on it with him, and he trained us up, and then we opened in 2001. I have to tell you, by the way, the thing that I remember really clearly is Casey trying to explain 5 things to us
Yeah.
without being able to show us 5 things, right? Because he
Okay.
had nobody
knew how to do it
Nobody
yet.
knew how to do it except
Right.
him. And he's trying to describe it to us, and he's like, yeah, so, you use mime and gibberish, and we're on board, okay, sure, and there's replacements, okay, but you can't do the activity until you get the guesser to do the activity. And we're like,
Wait, what?
what are you talking about? The guesser doesn't know it. And he's like, right, exactly. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, but you get them to do it. And we're like, what? How?
Do what?
Yeah. And I vividly remember the weekend before we opened. We kind of got it.
Yeah.
But we took a road trip to Portland to see them do
okay.
ComedySportz.
Yeah.
And I so clearly remember this. There were like 12 of us in the front row.
Yeah.
And we're watching, and they start doing 5 things. And after, during the first thing, the entire row of 12 of us just went, oh. It all of a sudden fully made sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Well,
And
it's kind of hard
is,
to explain some games.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you don't really get it till you see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I once in a while I'll see people outside ComedySportz trying to do things,
Yeah.
and this is just my own experience. I haven't seen it go well. Because it is just such a specific skill set,
Yeah.
and ComedySportz players drill on it.
Right.
We work on it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of other places treat it like any other game, and you just kind of can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good game. What's your favorite game?
I think my favorite game is probably genre replay.
Genre replay.
Yeah.
Explain that for our listeners.
So genre replay, you do a minute and a half establishing scene, and then you play that scene out again 2 or 3 times in different genre suggestions that you get from the audience. So maybe it's film noir and Shakespeare and musical, or, whatever exciting genres In LA, we used to get Tennessee Williams a surprising amount.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got to brush up on that.
Yeah, which is fun. Like,
Yeah.
I love genre stuff, so.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And you're good at a German accent, so we've got that covered. Check.
I mean, you said it, not me.
So you were in Spokane.
Yeah.
And that's where you first did ComedySportz.
Yeah.
And then you left Spokane and
did.
went to LA. Why did you
did.
go to LA?
Well, it was very hard to have a career as an actor in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very hard to have a career as an actor,
Yeah.
full stop. But it's harder in Spokane. There's just not enough work. So I moved to LA to make it.
Did you make it?
I don't know.
Are you full-time acting?
Not anymore.
You were?
I had periods where
Yeah.
I was.
Nice.
Yeah, I had periods where I was living off of my acting.
LA seems like such a hard place to be because everyone is trying to make it, right?
Yeah, I mean it's hard. There's a lot of really cool people down there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gets a bad rap by, a lot of people are like, oh, everybody is trying to, claw their way to the top. And
Yeah.
there's some really great artistic communities there.
Yeah.
There really are. There's great theater there. There's great improv there. Obviously, a lot of, indie film stuff
Right.
going on.
So what kind of acting were you doing then?
In LA, sort of anything and everything I could get. I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of improv. I did some film and TV work. Probably my most success, quote unquote, was in commercials.
Okay.
I did a lot of commercials.
For what? Give me something. Would I have seen it?
Oh, I mean, probably you wouldn't remember that it was me, but yeah, I did a Chevy commercial. I did an AT&T commercial that never aired. I did Ameriprise financial planning. That was actually my best payday. That was
Nice.
really nice.
I hear commercials pay quite well. They can.
They used to. It's getting worse and worse for actors,
Yeah.
unfortunately. More and more commercials are going non-union, and they can just pay people much less
much
if they
less.
do that. Yeah.
So in LA, you started performing right away at ComedySportz?
Yeah, I got very lucky.
Yeah.
I got really lucky. I moved down in September of 2003.
Okay.
And the LA team of ComedySportz was having auditions in October of 2003.
Okay.
And at the time, they only had auditions on average like every 3 years.
Oh.
And they didn't have any kind of a minor league or
Okay.
anything like that. So it was sort of, if you didn't get in, we'll see you next time.
Right, in 3 years.
Yeah. And it was my first audition in town. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
But, I was very lucky. I got in.
Well, tell me what unless it's a secret, James Bailey. Tell me
James Bailey. Don't
the
tell me.
process of the audition for LA ComedySportz.
This was, a couple minutes ago, but it was largely sort of brief 2-person scenes.
Okay.
A lot of kind of establishing, clear who, what, where quickly. And,
Right.
And getting into, the meat of the story quickly.
Yeah.
I think we played a few games so that they could see how we handled games. But it was, if memory serves, it was mostly scene stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And James Bailey was running them?
James Bailey.
James Bailey.
That son of a
Don't
Bailey.
get me started on that guy.
Oh, James. Yeah. Yeah, James was my boss for almost 20 years.
20 years you
Yeah.
were in LA.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And James was a great boss.
He was. He was fantastic.
That's on the record, James.
So as you're in ComedySportz LA, you're also doing acting, and you started doing voice work also.
I did some voice work. I did the English language dub for a number of Netflix shows.
I think that's fantastic.
It's really fun work. It's hard.
How do you get into voice work? You're acting. How do you...
Well, there's high-paying voice work that is really hard to get into. I didn't get any of that.
Like Pixar?
Yeah,
Disney.
or even like commercial stuff.
Okay.
It's very tough. But the Netflix stuff, I was very lucky. A friend of mine from the theater community was directing the English dub of a show and brought me in for whatever reason. I don't know. He was like casting the show, and he was like, oh, this guy Rick would be good.
Okay.
And I had a great time doing it, and he brought me back. And then eventually he had me as a series regular on a few shows,
Okay.
which is really fun. And a couple of other directors from that same company brought me in, and yeah, so it was a lot of sort of referral.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it just you in a room, or are you with other actors as well?
If you're doing what they call walla, which is sort of crowd noise, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
background noise,
Yeah.
then they'll have you in with a few other people. But
And
most
did you say
of the-
rutabaga? I always heard it was rutabaga.
We mostly would just like have, fake conversations amongst ourselves, which was more fun than rutabaga,
Have you heard that?
Walla
Am I
Walla
making
onion.
that
No,
up?
you're not making
Okay.
peas and carrots.
Rutabaga.
Yeah. No, it's more fun to just like have an improv conversation with somebody.
Right.
So we would do that, but I only did that once. The rest of them, yeah, you're in the booth alone with, the headphones on, and the director and engineer are
Okay.
in your ear, kind of, having you adjust things. And
Say it with a German accent.
yeah, didn't end up doing any accents on any of them actually, but language stuff did come in handy. Like I speak a little Spanish and some pretty okay German,
Right.
and there were times where we weren't happy with the translation because it was very awkward.
Okay,
the
yeah.
English translation. So I like, we would sort of parse it through and kind of go like, okay, well, this is what the original was, and what's a better way of saying
Play with it a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what would match what their mouths were doing better.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really technical kind of voice acting, but it's really fun.
Do you prefer voice acting, commercial acting, or improv?
Oh boy. Doing voice acting and commercial acting is fun.
Yeah.
And there can be, particularly with commercial acting, there can be exciting stuff because it's a different shoot every time. And
Right.
there are weird specifics. I'm on a beach for this one.
Yeah.
I'm in a mansion for that one, kind
Okay.
of thing, right? But no, improv.
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 Good answer.
I mean, it's just so, like, it's the best. It's so much fun.
It is so much fun. What do you think you're known for? Like in LA, you were there for what, over 20 years? Or 20 years-ish?
Just shy of 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think you, Rick, is known for? Like if an audience member came quite often and saw you, like, oh, that's the guy that...
Well, I think in ComedySportz Worldwide, I'm probably known for improvised Shakespeare.
Okay.
I teach an improvised Shakespeare workshop, and I've been doing a version of it, since I was still in Spokane.
Oh, okay.
So I'll go to the the ComedySportz World Championships, and I'll teach it, and I think that's probably what I'm known for.
Okay.
In Worldwide, I think audiences, it would really kind of depend on the show, because I've done a lot of different kinds of shows in addition to ComedySportz. So I love doing improvised genre stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love reffing. I love, it's just, I love being, announcer, Mr. Voice.
Oh, okay.
All that stuff is fun. Yeah.
Is there something that makes you a little nervous or uncomfortable in a show? Like you're kind of like, oh.
I get nervous with improvised singing and rapping, but being on the LA team for that long, I had to kind of get over that because...
Do they do a lot of music?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's very much, it's James's team, and
Yeah.
James is
James Bailey.
James Thomas Bailey.
James Bailey, rutabaga.
He's he's a big musical guy,
Yeah.
and we had music directors for our shows, keyboardists,
Right.
and there were a lot of music people on the team, and it scared me, and I just had to get over
just
it.
gotta go
because
with
it was
it.
just like it was every show. Yeah.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
got more comfortable then over
Yeah.
the years doing that.
Yeah, and I'm fairly comfortable with it now, but
Yeah.
I still get a little, nervy. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
My loyal listeners know what makes me uncomfortable. Kyle knows. It's those pun games, for the love of God.
It's everybody has something. Everybody's got a thing.
I can't. I've tried, and it doesn't matter. That's my kryptonite.
Well, but like I've worked with a lot of ComedySportz improvisers over the years, and I've taught a lot of people, and like everybody has a thing that they feel like they are uniquely bad at.
And people don't talk about what they're good at; it's what they're really bad at.
Yeah,
Right.
and they're also pretty invariably better at it than they think they are, but you know.
Well, not me. You've never seen me play 185.
You are the one special, uniquely.
I need Brian Green next to me whispering jokes because I am like,
you're
I
the
got
special,
nothing.
ugly snowflake.
I really am.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
At least you'll
thing.
always have Brian Green there.
I do. Brian Green whispering in my ear puns is, gets me through a show.
I mean, that'd get me through life, you know?
Oh,
that sonorous voice of his.
Oh my God. Brian Green, James Bailey.
Rutabaga.
So in LA,
Yeah.
you were their education director and rec league coach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, tell me about that.
I was their education director and rec league coach. I'm sorry.
Nice.
Yeah, James.
Like, did you have to audition for that, or like, how does that come about in LA?
No, our wonderful education director and rec league coach, Jen Bascom, brilliant woman, brilliant teacher, brilliant performer, wonderful friend. She was stepping down because she had done it for a good chunk of time and she was moving on to other things. And I had been doing a fair amount of teaching for her at that point, and she and James talked and they were like, well, let's offer it to Rick.
Let's do it. Okay, great.
Yeah. So I did that 6 or 7 years, I think.
And what's your favorite part about teaching?
I don't know. I love watching people do things they didn't know they could do.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is.
Like, you're a teacher.
I am.
Yeah,
I'm a full-time art teacher.
Yeah. And that moment when people discover, often like as they're doing it, that they're capable of a thing they didn't know that they could do.
Right. It's fantastic.
It's great. Yeah. I love that.
Were you teaching beginning levels or advanced, or kind of all of them?
I mean, I wasn't teaching all of them all the time, but
Okay.
I did teach all of them at one time or another.
And how do you talk to people about getting over their fears, their nerves, their...
Well, our 101 curriculum was very much kind of built around, anyone can do improv, because anyone can.
Do you really believe that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
James Bailey can.
Yeah, it's true. And if he can do it, anybody
He can do it.
He'll never hear this.
No, he
It's
won't.
Okay.
It's okay. He probably doesn't listen.
But yeah, our curriculum was really built around sort of like, this is stuff that we all did as kids. We just got it socialized out of us. Yeah. So it's a lot of the same sort of stuff that you do if you're teaching any like applied improv workshops. You go to a company and you're there to help them with their team building or their communication or whatever. And it's the exercises that anyone can do and anyone can see, how useful they are.
Yeah. Well, how has improv helped you? Well, I mean, it's kind of a weird question for you because you've been acting, you do improv, you've done voice work. But I was going to say, how has improv helped you otherwise in your life, not in those professional settings?
I think it made me a better listener. It's a huge chunk of good acting and good improv is listening, just like really listening. I think it's a huge part of the people that I know and love. It's a lot of the way that I look at the world. It's a lot of how I deal with my own stuff, my own like depression and imposter syndrome and, but like improv can be really, really valuable in kind of pushing against that and bringing you back to the moment. And
Well, talk about that. You just said with depression, and I know you've been almost 11 years sober.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a huge
Thank you.
feat.
I have huge feet.
You do. I noticed that. I didn't want to say anything. How do you mean that improv, those skills, can help you with those things?
Well, this it feels like a topic for an entire podcast, but like
I know, cut it a little shorter.
Bring it home, Steadman. I think, improv is so much about being in the present moment, right? And anxiety is of the future.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what my therapist tells me.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And depression is of the past. And if you can bring yourself to the present, it blew me away as I was getting sober and learning more and more in my recovery. It blew me away all of the kind of intersections of recovery and improv and like meditation and like Eastern spiritualism and Western spiritualism, and there's all these places that they kind of all crisscross, and they have a lot to do with being in the present moment, putting your focus on someone other than yourself, right? A lot of recovery is trying to be of service to someone else because you get out of your own crap.
Right. Which is
And-
what a good teammate does.
Absolutely.
Gets out of themselves and, helps the teammates.
Yeah, and there's
does it for the audience.
100%. And there's a thing in all of those things, in connecting with someone else, in teaching, in improv, in acting. There's a thing that happens where you kind of briefly lose sense of self, right? It stops kind of being about you for a little bit, which I guess is called sublimation. And the root word there is sublime.
Okay.
So, but it's that process of getting out of your own ego and putting your focus on someone else.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my, darkest times and most difficult moments, I've been lucky enough to have shows to do. And for, an hour or two, I can just, I get away from that misery. And it's, it's always waiting for you when you're done.
Yeah. It always is.
Yeah, it always is. But it's, have you noticed that, like, you can even be sick or injured, and you get on stage and it's gone. You forget.
You forget about it.
You forget it completely.
Yes.
And you do a show, and then you're like, oh God, I'm even worse now.
I forgot I don't feel good.
Yeah. But during that time, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
And that's called sublimation when it's gone?
From what I understand, yeah. I mean,
I love that. I want to live in that place.
I know. I know.
Because I'm always in my anxious mind.
Oh man, I think most of us in improv, like most creative people, are very much working to get out of our own heads.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that fascinating? You hear that about a lot of comedians who have these inner demons. Of course, you think of Robin Williams.
Sure.
And
Chris Farley.
Yeah. And all these people that have these demons, and then... But you don't think that. Like, when you watch them, you think, oh, they must be so happy and fun all the time.
Yeah, well, and that's the trap of comparing your insides to someone else's outsides, right? Because, like, what you see is never going to be the whole story.
Right,
like,
right.
it's, we're all going through something.
Right.
But, yeah, I think there is something to, like, comedy people. There's usually some sort of darkness that we're working through. I don't know what that is.
We're all pretty messed up. But... Well, then why
but like
is
comedy sports as a thing, like, brings us toward the light. Like, it requires us to go to the light.
Is that why we do it?
I don't know. That's something that James would talk about, though. Is like, comedy sports is about the light.
Yeah, because he's real dark.
You have no idea.
James Bailey.
James Bailey. But he would say that, and I think there's something to, like, improv by its nature tends to collect people who want to collaborate and work with others, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to other art forms that are more solitary. And comedy sports, I think, even more so because it's so goofy, And I say that, with absolute love for it.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But it is super goofy and, like, it's dorky, in a wonderful way. But, like, it's not an organization full of people who are trying to look real cool, which is great.
Yeah.
Because then they can just be genuinely themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say you're an introvert or an extrovert?
I heard the term at some point ambivert, and I think that's me. Like,
like ambidextrous, you're both.
Yeah, or like I've heard it said that, like, extroverts draw energy from being with other people, and introverts expend energy to be with other people. And I think, like, I draw energy from being with other people up to a point, and then it starts costing me energy. You know what I mean?
So you're like a full circle. It just keeps like in and out. And
That's a nice way to put it.
you're
Yeah.
a circle person.
I'm a circle person. I'm just a circle person, Christine.
So when you were in LA, I understand because I stalked you quite a bit that
You really did.
took. I know. I'm quitting my teaching job and going to become a detective. You took an improv class with Alan Arkin.
I
R.I.P.
did. Yeah, it wasn't. R.I.P. It wasn't in L.A. actually. It was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he lived.
Okay.
And I cannot remember exactly how I found out about it, but he taught weekend intensives in Santa Fe. And a friend of mine and I, we were both, professional improvisers. We had worked together on a show, drove out to Santa Fe to spend the weekend training with him. And he was great, man, because he was one of the original Compass players, I think. Like back in the Paul Sills, like pre-Second City. I know he was Second City, but I think he was before that.
Wow. Okay.
And there were people in that weekend workshop. It was like 2 8-hour days.
Okay.
There were two of us that were like professional improvisers,
Right.
and there were some varying degrees of like trained improvisers, people who spent a lot of time, to people who had done some classes. And then there were a number of people, it was their first exposure to improv.
Really?
Yeah. And it was really interesting to watch him approach this class because I've trained a lot of different places, but for instance, he never mentioned yes and as a concept.
Okay.
Like he just didn't talk about it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it seemed to work fine though, the way that he was approaching things. But he was very interested in people finding and being in the same tone in scenes. And one of my favorite things that he would do, he ended scenes a couple of different ways. He would go, and we fade out on that. Which was great.
Good.
That was
Very
great.
good.
But what was the best one though was he'd go, boom. That's it. Boom. He'd end scenes that way. And I remember lunch the first day, I was talking with some of the others. I was like, I want to get a boom.
Yeah.
Do you guys get a boom? Yeah, I want to get a boom.
I want to live my life with a boom like that.
That was great.
Just throughout your day, boom, that's right.
Boom.
I can't do it. Boom.
It was lovely. And I remember we were in this like community center in Santa Fe, and the second day it was super hot in there. He was just fanning himself at the beginning of the day. He's like, whoa, it's like Bikram improv in here. He was really a lovely guy though.
Yeah?
Yeah, really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful to hear about stars, actors that you hear about that are actually in improv and you might not, like
Yeah.
I didn't know he was. And then to hear that's just so wonderful.
Yeah. Man, and what a talent, right?
Yes.
Oh,
yes. I loved him in Little Miss Sunshine.
God. Oh yeah. He won the Oscar for that one. Yeah.
It's just a fantastic role.
So great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very sad when he passed. But
Yeah.
he made a ripe old age. So
Well, he went out with a boom.
yeah. Boom.
Boom.
That's
So,
it. Boom.
so then at some point,
At some point.
you left LA.
I did.
2023.
Yeah,
correct?
2023. Yeah,
And
last year.
you went to Seattle. What was
I
that
did.
about? Why? What'd you do
What
that
was
for?
that about?
What's happening? You left James Bailey.
Oh, James. I got hired by my good friend and now boss, Alex Grindeland, to come up to Seattle and be the artistic director there for the CSz.
Because didn't Alex and Bogan leave?
Yeah, they moved down to Jacksonville, Florida, and they opened an improv theater down there that they're running.
Not ComedySportz.
Not ComedySportz, First Coast Comedy.
Okay.
But Alex still owns CSz Seattle, but he wasn't there. And he and Bogan had done an amazing job keeping things going from the very opposite side of the country.
Right.
And a lot of the people on the team in Seattle had also done an incredible job kind of sharing responsibilities and
Yeah.
keeping things alive. But it was obviously like not an ideal situation.
Yeah.
So I moved up there March of 2023, and I've
Okay.
been running the theater since then. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
artistic director. What does
Yeah.
that mean? Tell me about your role.
I don't know. I don't know. I just collect checks, honestly. No, I do a lot there. I got the rec league restarted there, and I coach that.
Okay.
I direct our pro team, so our practices, our weekly practices. I give notes on our shows. I created our sort of season calendar and figured out what all our shows would be for the year. I'm going to begin the process of doing that for next year fairly soon. I cast a bunch of new people into the team last summer.
Okay. So you're kind of the guy in charge now.
I'm kind of the guy in
You're the
charge.
guy.
It's weird.
Okay.
Yeah. At a certain point, if you stay around long enough, people are like, well, I guess we got to give him something.
Yes, he's got to do the job now.
Yeah.
So tell me about some different formats, different shows you've done throughout your years in ComedySportz.
Boy. Well, so like outside of the ComedySportz format.
Yeah, outside of that format.
Okay.
Like play around with the improv show. What have you done?
So I did some stuff at IO West, R.I.P. IO West, and I played around at some other theaters. I did a lot at a theater in LA called Improv Theater. They are the home of theater sports in LA, but their big focus is narrative genre long form. So like a full improvised Tennessee Williams or Chekhov or Sondheim or Twilight Zone. They got a bunch of different styles that they focus on. So I studied a lot there, and I did a lot of stuff there. Great people. My friend Kat Davis and I on the LA team developed a 2-person show called One Person Show that we did for a while. That was a lot of fun. It was based on our experiences of seeing 1-person shows at like fringe festivals and things. And the premise was that we had been a couple, which we had not. Kat is happily married to another ComedySportz player named Kristen. But the premise was that we had been a couple, we'd broken up, and we were both individually processing our breakup the way that theater actors do by putting on a 1-person show. So we would come out on stage, and we would be improvising our own completely separate 1-person shows simultaneously with the idea that like we were on different sides of town from each other.
Yeah.
So there would be a lot of like kind of he said, she said kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a really hard form because you were sort of alone, but also not. It was really, it
sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. We did that for a while.
And did you come up with new stuff each time you did it? Reasons for the breakup each time?
Yeah.
Or did you find yourself kind of falling into like, oh, that one we did was really good?
No, we would get some sort of I can't even remember. We get some sort of a suggestion.
Okay, yeah.
And it'd be a different relationship, I guess, each time.
Okay, yeah.
But we were always playing pretty close to ourselves.
Okay.
As characters for that one. Yeah.
And how long was that show? Like an hour?
It was like a half hour.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
It was I don't know that we could have maintained it for an hour. It was really hard. Yeah, it was fun, but it was hard. I did a show for a while in LA called Inside Private Lives that was half scripted, half improvised, solo audience interaction, playing a historical figure. So you would do a whole bunch of research for the person that you were playing, and you would basically like kind of come out and endow the audience as people that you were asking for something from, and you would try to convince them. And you had a script that you had written, but you had to be able to break in and out of it and pick it up from different places because you were directly interacting with the audience and you were alone. It was just you and them. And it was 15, 20 minutes each person. Oh, wow. But it was high wire act.
Yeah.
You know? And I was playing the pianist Glenn Gould, who was not somebody that I knew almost anything about.
Yeah.
But it was just the show creator and director had kind of landed on that as my person. And it was a very exciting show and really hard. Probably the hardest show I ever did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really hard because it was like all of the things that are hard about scripted acting and writing and improv and audience interaction. And you were alone.
Right.
So it's just, it was hard, but it was really fun. Yeah.
I love that you try all these different things in improv. I think do you have any other things that you have kind of cooking in your mind to bring to Seattle?
Well, we've got some really cool stuff going on in Seattle I'm really proud of. There were a number of shows that were already happening there that I kept in place, but I joined the cast of the improvised Shakespeare show Sound and Fury that they have up there, and that's been delightful. But here's one that I'm really proud of. We have a show called Puppyprov.
Puppyprov.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, buckle up.
I'm ready.
It is in collaboration with a local animal shelter.
Oh, God.
Resilient Hearts Animal Sanctuary.
You bring dogs in?
Yeah.
Nice.
So the first half of the show is just the improvisers.
Okay.
And we do like a 20-minute kind of long-form improvised body switch story. We get information on a member of the audience and their dog and their relationship with their dog. And then we do this, and it's very, kind of kids-oriented.
Yeah.
And we do this like 20-minute body switch improvised story. And then after we finish that, the real stars arrive.
The dogs.
The dogs. Puppies that we do improv games while holding. We play Fur Square rather than Foursquare.
Okay.
We play Good Boy, Bad Boy, Worst Boy instead of Good, Bad, Worst Advice. We sit, stand,
beg,
yeah. Sit, stand, beg, yeah. And we play these, we play most of them while holding puppies. We'll usually have 3 or 4 puppies, and we'll kind of rotate them so they don't have to be on stage too long. And they're always really chill, actually.
I was going to say,
we keep expecting it to go crazy, but
right.
they haven't yet.
Has it gone sideways? Has a dog peed on you? Has it barked nonstop?
The audience has been less predictable than the dogs.
Really?
Yeah. The dogs have been amazing. And they're just pups. They're little, they're babies. They're I think the oldest ones are maybe 8 months.
Oh my God.
They're so cute.
So you hold them the whole time.
We
You don't let them.
We hold them, and then when we're not on stage with them, we have a little pen area off to the side of the stage that we put them down, and we'll pick up the other puppies and bring them in for games. And then at the end of the show, we bring the puppies out into our lobby, and the audience can come out and meet the puppies and potentially adopt the puppies.
Oh, stop it right now.
I'm not going to.
That's wonderful.
And from what I understand, all of the puppies that we've featured have been adopted.
Really?
Yeah, we've only done the show 3 times, I think. But we also give a third of the ticket sales to the animal sanctuary as donation. And we've raised close to $1,000 for them.
Wow.
And the puppies are getting adopted, and we have a great time.
How many of the players have adopted a puppy?
Amazingly, none. I think part of the reason, there were a number of players who were like, I can't do that show.
Yeah.
I cannot do that show because I will end up with more puppies.
Right.
I'm safe because I've got a cat that I know would not be okay with me adopting a puppy. So, it's not a consideration. There's a couple of dog owners in the cast. They already, they're set. Yeah.
I'm allergic. So I would have to hold the goldfish or the gecko. That's what
sad.
I know. That's
so
what we have at home. We have a goldfish. Actually, our goldfish.
I mean, it's great that you've got a goldfish and a gecko.
Well, Princess Rose died, but we still have Frederick the snail, and we have Mark the gecko.
Mark the gecko.
Mork, sorry.
Oh, Mork.
Mork.
Mork
I
love
and
that he
Mindy.
was just Mark in my mind. I was like, it's just what's the gecko's name? It's Jason.
So I want to hear about your ComedySportz nickname and how that came to be.
So my ComedySportz nickname is Rocksteady.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Rick Rocksteady Steadman.
Okay.
So that's where it came from. It came from Rick Steadman. But
that was really an exciting
it's a good story, right? If you've hung in this far, you're so happy that you have.
That was great.
But
who gave you the nickname? James Bailey?
No, actually, it didn't come from ComedySportz. I did a lot of stuff with a theater in LA called Sacred Fools Theater. And I think my friend Rebecca Larson came up with that nickname. And everybody at Sacred Fools was immediately like, oh, yeah, Rocksteady.
That's it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So they would just call me Rocksteady.
Okay.
For a long time, my ComedySportz nickname was Rick, amended by most doctors, Steadman.
I like that.
I like it too, but it is it's not concise.
It's not. That's true.
True. But we didn't really use nicknames all that much in LA.
Okay.
But we do in Seattle. So when I moved up to Seattle, I decided to start using Rocksteady.
Rocksteady.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Before we take off here, this has been fantastic getting to know you.
It has been a delight.
I'm liking talking about like the philosophy and psychology of improv. You're right. That could be a whole
I could have been wrong about all of it.
But, you sounded pretty darn toot and confident about it.
Who knows? I mean, that's a big part of improv, right?
Totally.
Yeah, just commit.
Commit. Which brings me back to my pun games. I never can commit. Maybe that's why I'm so bad at them, because I'm like, I'm really bad at this.
I mean, that's always the best thing to have in your mind when you're doing stuff.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Hey, give me your favorite ice cream flavor.
Ooh, s'mores.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like s'mores on the campfire too?
Oh yeah.
Favorite bird?
Wow. Parrot? I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I like all birds. I'm
a birder.
Yeah.
I love my birds. How about favorite Golden Girl?
Oh, what was Betty White's?
Rose.
Rose. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta love Rose.
Yeah.
They were all great, but her timing.
Oh my God.
So good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Three's Company, Ropers or Mr. Furley?
Wow. Ropers.
Yeah. When I was a kid, it was Furley.
Yes.
But now that, I don't know if you watch Pluto TV, and no, I'm not getting paid to plug them. Pluto TV is a free streaming service, my listeners, and they have a 24/7 Three's Company channel.
No.
Yes, they do. And a 24/7 Bob Barker Price is Right, and a 24/7 Love Boat
Know what
channel.
I'm doing rather than sleeping
I
tonight.
know.
Yeah.
But my husband and I both agreed we always thought it was Furley when we were kids, but now we prefer the Ropers.
Yeah.
Maybe because we're just married and curmudgeon-y now.
I mean, Furley was, it's great, obviously. It was Don Knotts, right?
It was. It was Don Knotts, who also did a Scooby-Doo guest star moment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, there goes our lightning round, folks.
Yeah.
I'm laying out some papers here in front of me.
Yep.
Each piece of paper has a different Comedy Sports game on it.
Okay, this is a trap.
It is, because now remember, these are probably the titles that I've used in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And so if you pick one and you don't know what the heck it is, just put it back and just grab another one.
Right.
I want you to pick two.
You want me to pick two?
I want you to pick two, and I want you to tell me. We're not going to play the game, my dear listeners, improv on podcast. But I want you to tell me the two games and tell me which game you would rather play in the show.
This is easy. I picked Arms Expert and Naive Replay. Both great games. Naive Replay. Every day of the week.
All right, tell us about it. How do you play Naive Replay?
Naive Replay, typically you do it with 3 players. You send 2 of them out of the room. You get a suggestion. One player improvises a scene as if the other 2 players are there, leaving space for them. Then you bring back one of the players. You tell them what the suggestion is. The first player begins replaying that exact same scene that they did. The second player plugging themselves in, and then you do it again with the third player. And it's a high degree of difficulty, high risk, high reward. But I love this game. This is one that we worked in Seattle quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah, because I think there's all sorts of sort of exciting stuff to be found in it. You know? And it really requires you to make big, strong choices on your own while yes-anding in real time.
Right.
It's great. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And then Arms Expert was the other one?
Arms Expert was the other one.
I haven't seen that played in years.
Oh, me either. It's a fun game, but
it's fun for the audience, for sure.
I think it's more fun for the audience than the players.
Right.
Actually, we did Paws Expert and Puppy Prov.
Oh.
So we did Arms Expert, but with one player holding a puppy in front of their face, so that it was as if the puppy was the expert.
Yes. Okay.
And it was very cute. We ended up letting go of that as a game because we never felt like it fully landed. Yeah.
The puppies just didn't know what the heck was going on.
I mean, they never do.
Yeah, bless them. Yeah. All right, our last game here.
All right.
Rick.
Yeah.
I like to do some would you rather questions because, I don't know, I think they're really fun.
No, I'm a fan of the podcast. I always enjoy this part.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I want you to pick a category.
Okay.
Although I might end up doing more than one.
Okay.
There's 5 categories on this card. I want you to pick which category you want to go with.
All right.
Pain, fear, discomfort. That's one category. I know. That's a lot in one category. Appearance and embarrassment.
Okay.
That's another category. Food and ingestion.
Okay.
ethics and intellect,
Ooh.
or random? Random.
Well, let's go random.
Random.
Because who knows what the heck that's going to be.
Would you rather live in a house with no windows or no doors?
So if I live in a house with no doors, but it does have windows, presumably I can
I was
leave.
going to say, is that how you get in and out?
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what's happening.
I'm like, if I'm trapped, then no windows. But presumably I can climb out the windows. So I'm going to say no doors. Because you want some natural light.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go for the pain, fear, and discomfort.
Great. That was going to be my other one.
All right. Would you rather be put in a small cage on dry land with a hungry great white shark that has just been taken out of the water?
Okay.
Or would you rather be put into an underwater cage with an angry tiger? You have an air tank.
Wow,
it's a loaded question.
They're just like you had too much Chinese food and then fell asleep and you're having just the worst dreams.
Weird dreams.
I think I would go dry land shark.
Because how long can the shark really breathe, right?
Yeah, it can't.
You just got to kind of run around in the cage.
Yeah, because for all I know, the tiger can tread water, and you know,
and you're doomed.
It's gonna want to like at least stand on top of my cage to rest. So
I love that you have an air tank, but the angry tiger I don't think does. So the sucker's gonna drown.
I don't think either of these is fair to the animals.
No, really. Where's PETA in all of this? All right, last one, and I think I'm gonna guess what you'd say.
Okay.
Because of what we do here. Would you rather be really smart and really boring or really dumb but funny and entertaining?
Dumb and funny.
Heck yeah, mister.
Yeah, I feel like things might be easier if I was like super dumb. Right? Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
That's what we gotta...
Yeah, you gotta just like funny and entertaining and really, really dumb. That's probably a very happy life.
It's so happy.
Yeah,
Talk about living in the moment.
Yeah, right?
Well, Rick, this has been fantastic
this
talking
has been
to you.
A joy.
I really appreciate you coming in all the way to Milwaukee to do this interview.
It was just for this.
From your homestand in Seattle.
Thank you. I can't wait to hear more episodes of this show.
Oh boy, we're going for it. All right, thanks for coming down, Rick.
Thank you.
The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is PJ Rockwell. Check us out on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and questions can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Check you later.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.